Thank you very much, Anthony, and welcome everybody, and thank you for having us. Thank you for the invitation today. Stand out of the way. It's so lovely to see so many faces, and faces on the tops of people who have legs, because we're so used to seeing you on the screen, aren't we? Or even as a little circle with just a little photo or your initials. So it's really great to see everybody here today. So my name's Jo, and this is my colleague Nicola, and we're part of the Signs of Safety team for Suffolk. Today we will reflect together about professional curiosity. We'll be thinking about what it is, what does it mean to you, and how do you remain professionally curious when you're faced with that uncertainty. This is just a taster. We're here for about 3/4 of an hour, maybe a little bit less. So just a taster, just to give you an idea about some of the conversations, which links in rather nicely with what Anthony's already just said about having those conversations. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to put you straight into those breakout rooms, but you're actually going to be in a breakout room with somebody sitting next to you that you can actually see, touch, feel, and have a proper conversation with. And what we'd like you to do is we'd like you to have a conversation about what professional curiosity means to you. So just 3 minutes, so turn to the person next to you. The people who are joining us virtually, you may be in a room with other people. Turn to that person next to you in that room. However, if you're on your own, just use this time to reflect on the questions. So think about, what does professional curiosity mean to you? Okay, if you'd like to have that conversation. Is that right? Hello, you've got 30 seconds. That was very loud. Body, are you ready? Let's bring everybody back now into the room. Okay, and let's hear from some of you. Everyone will have come up with a different meaning as to what professional curiosity means to you, and that's okay. We're all human, you know, we've all got different views, we've all got different experiences. So let's hear from this side of the room. Anybody, just shout out. What does professional curiosity mean to you?
Means when there's something that's not fitting the norm that you would be expecting, and it's standing out to you, and it can be either something quite obvious or it can be something very subtle. It can also be something that's a feeling that something's not quite right as well, even though you can't put your finger on it.
Yeah, like that sort of gut feeling that you have. Love that, absolutely, thank you. Thank you ever so much. Let's go to the middle of the room. What does professional curiosity mean to you in the middle of the room? Anybody? So not accepting things at face value, sort of having that in the back of your mind and digging that little bit deeper so you've got, you know, a deeper understanding of what's going on. Thank you. And now to this side of the room. What does professional curiosity mean to you? Might be something you've never really thought about before, but yeah, sorry.
One of the things we were talking about is having the courage to challenge, especially if it's someone more senior. If you feel something's not right, usually there's a reason for that.
So having that courage, even if it is somebody senior to you, having that courage to challenge them. And that can be really difficult, can't it? So that's something quite important. So thank you for mentioning that as well. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so we think critically and we never assume we have all the answers. And that aligns really nicely with one of the signs of safety principles. I mean, it really does tie in very nicely as well with everything that everybody's just said. So curiosity doesn't stand in isolation. Curiosity is made up of a lot of things, and it's not just about the questions that you're asking somebody. It's actually, there's four main elements to remaining professionally curious. Unfortunately, we haven't got time to go into those elements, those four elements today, but it's about thinking of it from lots and lots of different areas. And if we're acknowledging those people's lived experiences, we're thinking about how it allows them the opportunities to form those relationships. And we know that trauma, loss, and toxic stress can really make it difficult for people to communicate. So you've just thought about what professional curiosity means to you. Now we're going to think about what is professional curiosity. So again, just for 2 minutes, on those tables, the person next to you, think about what is professional curiosity. It's very slightly different to what it means to you. Okay, you've got 2 minutes, off you go. Okay, 20 seconds,
Or mic is
everybody.
up.
20 seconds, everybody. Okay, it sounds as though the conversations have dropped, so let's move on. So this is a statement, and this is used by lots of local authorities, and this is their explanation of what professional curiosity is. And it's the communication skill needed to explore and understand what's happening, rather than making assumptions or accepting things at face value. Exactly what was said with the feedback. And here are some other definitions, slightly different. I'll just give you a few seconds to read what's on the screen there. And these are from research. Okay, so what we'd like you to do now is we'd like you to use your curiosity. We'd like you to have a conversation with the person next to you. We'd like you to be really curious about them. Use all the skills that you have to find out what skills and qualities do you need to be professionally curious. And it's up to the person next to you to do that, sort of that questioning, to find out what skills have you got that helps you to be professionally curious. So a couple of minutes just to sort of talk to the person next to you, or talk in threes, whatever's easiest for you. And the people that are joining us virtually, a time for you to reflect. Okay, everybody back in the room. Should we come back together now, everybody? Okay, we're going to gather some feedback, and my colleague Nicola is making her way to the back of the room there with the microphone so that everybody who's joining us virtually can hear as well. So we're thinking about what skills and qualities do you need to be professionally curious? And I'll hand over to my colleague.
Okay, so anyone from the back here who would like to share some of the skills and qualities they have or they feel is needed?
So even if we are asking the questions, it's about making sure that we're listening to what's being said so that we can then explore that further.
Thank you. Okay, then I'm going to make my way through to the middle there. Okay, so someone from the middle section here, someone that, confidence. Okay, if I can ask you to speak into here so those people online can hear you.
Yeah, you've got to have confidence. You've got to be confident to ask uncomfortable questions.
Okay, and what difference does having that confidence make?
It just gives you a bit of backup, I suppose, to stand your ground and dig your heels in.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, let's come to the front then. So someone along here, something from someone. Everyone's looking a bit scared, and is she coming my way? So, okay, let's hear from over here.
I think you've got to have good observational skills as well, because that can prompt you to ask certain questions or think about things that you're not quite sure about and you want more information of.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, what kind of things are you looking for when you're in that space of using using it as an observation as well?
You're just looking how people present, the environment, anything really, that you can pick up on that you think, oh, that's not quite right. Or...
Okay, and that kind of leads us on really nicely, I think,
Yeah.
doesn't it, to our clip. So, Jo.
So, what difference does it make? And that is a very interesting point about studying the environment and being curious about the environment. And when we think about what's happened the last 2.5 years, how difficult that's made it for us to be able to do that. So what's that done to our curiosity? So what difference does it make when we're being curious? Children and adults who find it difficult to voice their experiences will be heard and understood, and practitioners will be informed by evidence from several sources to make secure decisions. And it's taking us back to that decision making and having those conversations that you were talking about earlier. What I'd like you to do now is watch this clip. That's what I'm going to say, and then we'll come back to you. Do this as an individual activity, and that way the people who are joining us virtually, they can sort of do the same as well. I'd like you to think about what it was you noticed. So what did you notice? What would you do next? And how did you reach that decision? So just a minute to think about the clip that you've just seen. What would you do next? Nicola? Oh, I am back, thank you. Okay, back into the room. for everybody. I'm so used to saying back in the room when people come back from those breakout rooms, so I should just say, hey, we're back. Okay, so having thought, you've watched the film, you've taken notice of what's happened. How much notice have you taken? What would you do next? It's thinking about it. And how did you reach that decision? And everyone will have decided what they would do next, and it will be different for everybody based on your experience, your values, your beliefs, what job role you do, what different jobs you've done in the past. Everything will be different for you. And at this stage, it's really It's really important that you check yourself. You know what's going on for yourself, because decisions are made on experiences, on our own experiences, and on the experiences of those other people as well, and what it is they're saying to you. I'd like you to just watch this next clip.
Your brain, by some accounts, receives roughly 11 million pieces of information each second, but your conscious brain is only able to process about 40. How do you handle all the rest? You handle it because you're really using two brains. Your conscious brain, which works with facts and data, has very little capacity and processes information slowly, and your unconscious brain, which is habit and intuition driven, has huge capacity and is really fast. One of your unconscious brain's best tricks is its ability to recognize patterns and use them to assign people and things to categories, allowing your unconscious brain to deal with all of the known, not dangerous issues, and leave only the few unknown or dangerous issues to your conscious brain. This allows us to recognize a pattern and act on it, rather than having to think about every interaction as if we were experiencing it for the first time. We can glance at that four-legged animal and know if it's a wolf or a cocker spaniel. That recognition allows us to make assumptions about the animal facing us, that the wolf belongs to the wild animal category and is likely to be dangerous, or that the cocker spaniel is in the domestic dog category and not likely to be dangerous. The assumptions we make about these pattern groups are likely to be based on our own experiences, on information we have gained from our culture or background, or from the media we listen to or people we admire. Unfortunately, those assumptions are often wrong. When we categorize people, our brains apply two other tools. One is affinity bias, a hardwired preference to respond positively to people who look, sound, and act like ourselves. Brain imaging scans show that when people are shown images of faces that differ from their own, it activates in milliseconds activity in the part of the unconscious brain that alerts us to possible danger. This may reflect a survival tool left over from ancient times when danger often came from those outside our immediate group. Today, however, this means the associations and biases are likely to be unconsciously activated every time when we come across a member of a group, even if we consciously reject group stereotypes. In addition to affinity bias, our unconscious brain categorizes people into groups and then connects those groups to our learned ideas or constructs about what is good or bad. Now, we've decided whether someone is like us or not, and whether they're good or not, all within milliseconds of meeting them. So, what can you do to manage your unconscious biases? You've already started by just learning about unconscious bias. Now, identify your own biases and address one at a time by building inclusive habits. Remember, if you do not intentionally, deliberately, and proactively include, you will unintentionally exclude.
Thinking back to the very, very short clip of that person walking up to that front door, what are you now noticing about your decision? Was there any bias? What are you thinking? Yeah, I've got some nods in the room here. Yeah, there probably was some bias there. And having watched that, has that helped? Yeah. Okay. If you don't take check of yourself, bias can lead to the absence of that curiosity because you're using your bias to, or your bias is happening, it's going on, you haven't taken check of it. So you're not being curious, you're not questioning that bias, you're not aware, you're not taking check. You may have noticed that there was it was a well-maintained home. You know, lovely flower pots, nice front door, gravel drive. That will have all been playing into your bias. And if you don't take check of that, you may well then presume that it's a well-maintained family and home environment inside behind that front door. Well-maintained life. So another principle with signs of safety is that we balance optimism and evidence so that we assess the situation rigorously. So we are optimistic, I'm sure you're all very optimistic, but we've got the evidence there for us to be optimistic about. You know, we're seeing things happen, we've got the proof, we've got the evidence, so then we can be optimistic about the change or about the future. I want to just introduce you, and some of you will know this and will have worked with this. I'm sorry, I'm in your way, aren't I? And this is Winnicott's discrepancy matrix. And this is a way of sorting information. So the lack of curiosity can lead to uncertainty. And when working with uncertainty, it's really important to sort the information that we have, to slow down our thinking and really work out what it is we know. What do we already know? What do we need to find out? What's uncertain? What do I think I know? And what is missing? So with the person next to you again on your table, just a couple of minutes, and for the people that are watching us virtually, this can be done as an individual activity, some time to reflect. I'd like you to think about the information that you gathered, that you've thought about, your bias from watching the film. And I'd like you to start sorting the information using this grid. So just a very quick 2-minute conversation.
So can you give us an example then, Jo, of how we would sort that information?
Right. So what has been useful? What's been useful? What do you know? I know what you're thinking of. Okay, we know there were 2 flower pots. We know they're there. We know there was a gravel drive. What else do we know for certain? Thank you. What's uncertain? What's unclear? Okay, I'll leave you for 2 minutes then. Thank you.
Okay, so lots of conversations happening, which is really useful. So I just want to explain this in a little bit more detail, really. So it's really important that, a bit like when we said, sometimes you have that feeling, don't you? You have that kind of intuition. You think something's not quite right. So it's really useful to help yourself or others to really sort through the information. So we've adapted this from Jane Winnicott, but actually this is kind of our Suffolk version, really, because we really like to think about the language to make it accessible to everyone. So when we're really thinking about what do we know, it really is proven, it's there, it's evidenced. We know that's happened for sure, feel really confident about that. It's that factual, and it could be the legal frameworks that we work within as well. When we're thinking about what is uncertain and unclear, it may be that it's hearsay. So often we hear about people, don't we? We hear something, or we may be in a meeting and someone will say something, and then that can become that truth, that can become that story. But actually, where's the evidence that fits underneath that? Often it can happen where people are being, potentially there's a behaviour or a way of something that's happened that they've acted out and done something. So I'm just thinking about sometimes we hear in places where someone's done something and then that becomes the truth that goes on. And because it's been documented in some piece of paper, it then becomes that they end up with a diagnosis, even though they haven't actually been in that space to be assessed in that way. So it's really being really clear and detailed, and this really helps with good decision making. And then one of the really important things is thinking, actually, what's missing here? So whilst we're thinking about our values, about what I think I know, so that's actually coming from that bias at times, our intuition as well, they really cross over. But ultimately, we're thinking about what is missing, what else do I need to know? And that leads us really nicely on to thinking about triangulation, which Joe's going to give us a quick
Whistle-stop tour.
Yeah.
Okay, and that really reminds me, the way Nicola was talking about, what's been said and what we don't know, what we're unsure about, is sometimes something can be said so many times that it becomes truth. And that can be passed along. That's not just from the people that we're working with or we're supporting. That can actually happen amongst professionals as well, that something is passed along so often that it becomes truth and it becomes recorded as truth as well. So that does lead on very nicely to triangulation. This is a method, it's a technique to analyse results. Results of the same situation, but using different methods. So, there might be other people that you want to speak about. Thinking about that front door, thinking about who else. Oh, I know the health visitor was due to visit last week. I might give her a ring. I might find out what's happening. How long have they lived there for? Is it something that perhaps you could contact through another means? So you've got the information. How are you going to use this to analyse and make decisions? How are you going to, what methods are you going to use? Who else are you going to speak to?
I think it's quite important as well to think about the fluidity of that as well, because it may be, for that example, when we saw the person going to the front door, that may be that for some people, that worker may have made an assumption that actually, the front door looks really nice, it's a well-maintained home, and it wouldn't be so urgent to actually follow that up. So it's really important that when we're analysing, that it's a consistent flow, and we make sense of new information that's coming in. Otherwise, if we don't make sense of that new information that's coming in, we can be quite insular in our decisions, and they're just made on that current information. So it's making sure that we that's why it's got the arrows, is that we move through, gather information from multiple sources as well. So actually, who do I need to speak to confirm this? And this is why family network meetings are really useful when we're working with people, because we're not only hearing from one person, we've got everybody in the room, and we can really find out what actually people are confirming or not confirming, which is really useful. So it leads us quite nicely on to thinking about some of the barriers that prevent us from being curious. And we've seen the unconscious bias film, and there's lots of different types of biases that will influence and impact on actually how we come to those decisions, and that's why it's really important to check on them. So Joe's going to show us some other biases. So these will be, you will recognise these. These are biases which have come from lots of evidence, lots of places of research, and I think Nora actually did a presentation here from the Suffolk Safeguarding Partnership Board, so this comes from some of her examples as well. So we've spoken about the confirmation bias or unconscious bias, which confirmation bias is a particular area there. But the other areas are thinking about that space where sometimes we call it disguised compliance. So, but we have to think about actually what's going on for that person as to why we're not able to have that really authentic, truthful relationship with them, where they're in that space where they're able to be honest to us. So disguised compliance can be that in that space where actually you can just get lip service. And it can often be when we're in the space of when we're working with people and those people have been in services for a long time, they've had lots of different conversations with people, and it can be that actually they know if they say this, then someone's going to go away, they're not going to come and knock on my front door again, or it may put a hold on what's happening. So we actually run it's a whole morning of a workshop where we go into this in a lot more detail. So we're just giving you a taster at the moment. It's also about that rule of optimism, and Joe kind of touched on this. So sometimes we can go in with a position of being really optimistic, and this is where that strengths-based approach can sometimes be misunderstood, that we think we're looking for positives, but we're not looking for positives, we're looking for evidence. So we're looking for evidence when things are working well, but actually really confirming that evidence as well. And we're looking for that in relation to the problem as well. So, for example, if there's been an incident and I go into a home and I say, I kind of ignore the incident, but I go in and say, what have you been cooking for tea? And they tell me that they've been cooking this, but then actually how does that make a difference to the fact that there's been an incident in the home? So it's about really making sure that we're not having that false optimism. It's very realistic for the situation. And it can sometimes happen that when we're in that space of optimism, we can get the start again syndrome as well. So where we're in the space of a new worker comes in, they come in, the family tell them sometimes that worker before was awful, they weren't very good, I didn't have a good relationship with them. And they can try and bring people alongside, and therefore they have a real strong hope that's going to happen. And we have to have hope, we have to hold on to hope, but it has to be realistic hope that we're working with. Accumulating risk as well. So, for example, again, if we're in that situation where we're only looking at things in isolation, we need to look at the past. We need to understand what's the pattern that's been happening here, because that will help us to predict the future. Normalisation as well, and that can happen where, particularly if we've been in the home and we've been seeing someone for quite a long time, we can become part of the family to some degree. They expect us to come round, they know when we're coming, it's quite predictable, and we normalise the behaviours that are happening in that home. We normalise the fact that the home conditions have always been like this. They've never improved, and it becomes our normal expectation. So it's about making sure that the supervision, which is the last comment on here, is so important. But not only supervision where we're sitting in a room with someone, but having colleagues that are able to go to places together. So you can get someone that can check in and check that you're making the right decisions. What you're seeing, you're not normalising it. It's actually, am I in the right space? Am I thinking about this clearly? Have I become too close to that situation? So then we've got knowing but not knowing. So it's really important, and that kind of, it's okay to not know, but what are we going to do about it? And thinking about that goes quite nicely with the kind of dealing with the uncertainty, but also thinking the unthinkable. So sometimes we have to have a hold on that actually what could happen here, being very proportionate in that, but actually what could be going on here, and making sure that we're gathering the evidence to help us to confirm that either is happening or it's not happening. Okay. And it's the tensions as well, isn't it? It's about that relational approach. So if we think about, if we're taking the professional curiosity doesn't stand in isolation, we really need to make sure that we're giving the best opportunity when we do go in that home to be able to be curious, for that person to be able to be open and honest with us, so that we're taking away that fear, because that can be quite a large barrier in that place. So we've done a real big whistle-stop tour, and to be able to talk about curiosity in the space of 40 minutes is quite a feat, really. But we do have a whole morning's workshop, which is virtual, so it's open to everyone, along with other series of workshops, where we really look at this in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, and the dates for those are the 11th of July. They should be on CPD anytime soon. 11th of July and the 11th of November. So please feel free. If you have any problems, please just email myself or the Science Safety Central mailbox. But that really just leaves us to say thank you so much. Thank you for continuing to be curious and for doing all the good work that you are doing. Thank you for joining in as well with the breakouts. So have a good day.